Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Farashai, and today we're diving into the critical topic that can redefine how you approach your MBA application. This session is about learning how to read your own story through the eyes of an evaluator, what they see, what they question, and what they remember in your profile. So hopefully you're ready to dive right in. So when admission officers read your profile, they aren't just checking boxes. They're scanning for signals, essentially, of maturity, of direction, and leadership potential. They want to know if you'll thrive in their program, if you'll contribute meaningfully, and if you have a cohesive vision into where you're going. So this evaluation is highly contextual. Someone with a 3.4 GPA, for example, from a rigorous program and an upward grade trends might stand out more positively than someone with a 3.7 with no challenges. So the admission teams, the admission committees reading your profile compare you to people like you by industry, by function, by geography, and even gender. So positioning becomes key in terms of putting together a really strong application. So let's break down two fundamental elements of your profile, the academic and the professional experiences. Academically, they're looking for your ability to handle the rigor of an MBA program, quantitative courses, analytic framework, team-based learning. They look at the story behind the GPA. What major did you pursue? Did you challenge yourself? And was there improvement? Professionally, they want to understand the scope of your role, not just your title. What's the impact you've had? Have you led people or projects or led an aspect of a project? Have you influenced outcomes, decisions? Global and cross-functional exposure helps too, but we understand, of course, that not everyone has those opportunities. And your job description might not necessarily change in terms of how you're presenting yourself, but how you position your job description, how you position your experiences can radically shift the interpretation that the admission committee has in terms of how you're presenting yourself. In terms of signs that matter, admission officers, admission committees are looking for signals that you're not just ambitious, but intentional. There are a lot of applicants who are ambitious, but the intentionality is really what makes a difference. So strategic moves like shifting into a new role to build skills aligned with your post-MBA goals shows foresight. Your voice in the application matters. And rather in the materials that you're presenting, it should definitely reflect authenticity and maturity. So are you grounded in why you want to do an MBA? Do you have a clear sense of what you bring to the table? And also clear sense of where you're headed. That kind of cohesive full package makes the committee pay attention to you, to your experiences, what you're going to bring to the table, and where you're heading. So we're essentially in this slide, I want to talk about how strong applicants get tripped up. So if you switch jobs very frequently or every year and don't provide context, it can look unstable from the eyes of an admission committee. If your resume shows innovation and leadership, but your goals read as generic or disconnected, it creates cognitive dissonance. Even silence can become a red flag, believe it or not, right? Oftentimes I see this when applicants are like, I don't want to, cause drama. I don't want to cause them to pay attention. They are paying attention. So if you're silent and not addressing it, that can definitely, depending on what, of course, but it can be a red flag. So failing to explain a career pause, a low GPA, or a pivot might allow the reader to assume the worst And of course, you can't understand what goes on through the mind of a reader, especially given that you do not know. So you do not know them, rather. So remember, you have to shape the story yourself, or if you don't, the story is going to shape itself, which of course we don't want that. Another component to keep in mind is that you are not your resume. You are the meaning behind it. The strongest applicants don't pretend their path was perfect. No one is. They articulate how it prepared them for what's next. And that is the most important thing, because one can have an exceptionally, forward process in terms of, their career path. But if they don't show growth, they don't show any challenges, well, the admission committee doesn't have any value to look at, any material to look at to see how you're going to be handling complications as a future leader. So this is where you need to be both transparent, but also strategic. Reframe gaps as evaluation. Explain how different chapters connect in your life, in your experiences. Guide your reader with a sense of cohesion, direction, and resolve along the way. And this is not just your essays, not just your resume, but it's the entire application, every part of it. From your goals, your essays, your application portal, and all of its short answer questions, your videos, your interviews, the entire thing. Be proactive. This is really important as you are in the stage putting together your round one applications. So you want to be proactive, definitely not reactive, in addressing your own narratives, whether they are the strongest pieces or the weakest pieces in your profile. Each one of those definitely needs to be addressed in different parts. So everything has its own spot, own area in the application itself. So I'm going to give an example. I've shared this example before, but I think it's important to remember here in terms of framing. This client had incredible depth, but the nonprofit background didn't immediately scream MBA candidate. So together we repositioned him as a systems thinker, someone solving complex problems across stakeholders with growing exposure to product management methodology. We made the pivot feel logical, right? They're coming from nonprofit, going into the product management career, particularly in this one in finance. It wasn't a very direct, clear pathway, but the story, the moves that this candidate made everything feel this is a logical next step. So his goals definitely became ones where someone reading them didn't feel like they were a leap. They were the logical, like I said, next step. And where did this applicant go? Well, he ended up getting a full ride at Michigan Ross because of how the story was presented, because it resonated with the school that that he applied to. This other client I've also shared before. When we work with clients, with applicants, we definitely want to make sure that we believe in their story first and foremost. That's why you can never buy anything just off the rack, quote unquote. We want to make sure that there is a story that we feel we can support, and we can help tell a story. But this applicant, at the first glance, it felt like their profile, they had many different interests. But in the process of having a conversation with them, right? So if I look at the resume, it wasn't very cohesive, but when I had a conversation with them, got to know a little bit more of the background, we definitely saw a through line that we believed that we could support. Her experience weren't random when we actually had the conversation. They were all expressions of service, operations, and communication. Once we identified that core value, we could present her journey as deeply intentional. Every component of her journey was absolutely intentional in terms of what she was trying to do, even though from a macro level initial perspective, it didn't seem so. she got multiple offers from multiple schools, including full ride. So this is to show you that, a clear, straight line, it doesn't always give you the best results. Sometimes the complexity in your profile is what makes you unique and very interesting as a candidate. So think of your own application as a guided tour. You decide what your reader sees, in what order, and with what emphasis. That is actually the power that you hold as an applicant putting together your application. So don't let silence, assumption, or overgeneralizations be what shapes your candidacy. That actually can be the detriment of your application. Get feedback early, start writing early, and use this period of time that we have, which is actually not early at this point, to strengthen how your story is received before you hit submit. This is really, really important. A strong story, it's not written in a day. It takes time. So use this period of time to actually do that effectively. So how we help applicants. So at SIA, we believe that your application should reflect your best self, not just the most polished version. But you have to be the most aligned version with all of your experiences. We help you find clarity, organize your story, and execute with confidence. You know what you should do and when you should do it by. We work with clients from a variety of different industries and profiles, and our approach is built on empathy and results. It's personalized to the individual and their journey, strategic with every decision that you make, every presentation that you're putting together. There is a strategy behind it, but we're also very transparent and tell you if you're going in the wrong way and why you're going in the wrong way, or if you're going in the right way and why you're going in the right way. So if you're looking to support in this application round, whether it's round 1 or round 2, definitely reach out for a consultation. Like I said earlier, we don't work just with any candidates, and this is not to say that we're creating exclusivity, but we definitely want to work with individuals who we believe we can help shape their story and present their story in a way that it's a good fit for the candidate in terms of being authentic, but also the schools that you are targeting, to make sure that there is a good match between the two. And of course, given that we work with applicants for an extensive period of time, so for example, for round 1 applicants, we work together until February of 2026. This is, we want to make sure that the people we work with, it's a mutual, strong fit in terms of internally as well. So I'm going to move now to questions. You can definitely go to our website, cadmissions.com. There will be also a comment in the screen or in the chat where you can get to book your consultation if we haven't talked yet, and see how we can support you with this process. In the meantime, let's answer some questions that have come through in the portal and dive deeper from there. Okay, so if you are watching live, definitely write your questions in the comments of whichever platform you're joining. We're monitoring it here, but we have received some questions that have come in through the registration, so I can help answer those. So let me just move a little bit this way. Okay, so how do I create a structure my profile with respect to each university? There are some elements in your profile that are going to be university agnostic, unless you are doing different degrees. Then obviously, meaning if you're applying to different degrees. What I mean by different degrees is not every university you're applying to is an MBA program, but there are other, like you're doing a master's in finance or something else. Then obviously you need a unique application to each school, or each program rather, that way. But in terms of each university that you're applying to for an MBA program, you're going to want to have some elements that are consistently across, or presented consistently across. And what I mean by that is, your resume should highlight your greatest strength, your greatest contribution, your greatest impact. And obviously, that's not going to change between schools. You may change a few languages here and there, depending on which schools you end up targeting. But that is going to be somewhat consistent across the board. Now, that doesn't mean that the resume is easy to write. It just means that you can repurpose it. Other materials are going to be uniquely for that school. So this means the creation and structure is the easy part. The research part, the strategy part is the difficult element in the application. And what I mean by difficult is that it requires reflection. So your job now is to make sure that you are getting your stories together, understand what the questions the schools are asking. And by the way, the questions are not yet released, so we have to wait until the questions come out later, beginning in the end of May, something along those lines, and they go on until July. Each school releases questions at different phases. And then you're going to look at, experiences that are that have shaped you, where you've contributed a lot. Experiences, obviously your goals are important. So you need to have a really clear goal in terms of, what you're looking to do. And you have to be doing a lot of research at this point to understand how each program is going to give you the tools that they need, or that you need rather, to get to the goal that you want to get to. This does not mean that you only rely on what you find on the website, because that's not enough information. That's going to sound very generic, because you won't be able to talk in enough detail to show that this is specifically the school for you. So at this point, gather a lot of intel in terms of putting together an application. We're going to have more sessions as we go through this journey, talking about different schools, what they're looking for in their application, and you can definitely join those. If you want support in the meantime, definitely reach out to have a consultation and discuss how we can support your journey. That is, putting together an application unique for you. We don't believe in cookie cutters. I think I bought one time a poncho that was a one-size-fits-all, and that did not fit me. So the point is, I don't believe in one-size-fits-all. Everyone has a unique story to tell. Next question. All right. Why are GMAT GRE test scores preferred over extensive years of professional experiences? Well, the GMAT and the GRE are the standard of evaluation. You're coming in, everyone comes in with a different background, with different exposures. Even the institutions that you've attended have different rigor. So if the school is trying to be as objective as possible, they're looking at a standardized testing system that, whether it's good or bad, they're trying to essentially create a space where everyone is evaluated equally. And determining their capabilities. Now, your professional work experience, they don't know how good you are in math, right? You can be, not so great investment banker, right? The test score is what allows them to see kind of where you are in your quantitative skills, in your, qualitative abilities or writing verbal abilities, and trying to create a playing field. There are some jobs that even require the test. So for example, if you're applying for consulting, they're going to want to see your GMAT if you were admitted with a GMAT test score. So they're kind of, they're looking at both of those, and that doesn't take away from your job and years of work experience. That is important as well, because the years of work experience allows them to see what kind of exposure have you had and how that exposure is going to benefit the class, right? And when you see applicants who have been admitted, and when you look at the class profile, and you see applicants who have been admitted with like a 149 quant in the GRE score and 150 like verbal, well, their test scores were not the things that got them in. It's probably the rest of their profile that got them in terms of the value that the school saw in that candidate. So yes, these are important. Everyone's journey is a little bit different in terms of how important it is for you. Because if you're an overrepresented candidate, your test score is going to be an element of their evaluation in terms of how you compare to other people in your demographic. but it's not the end all be all. Okay, I saw this question. I guess wanted to talk about this. I'm not sure I fully understood the question. So, if you are watching this live, definitely drop a comment, and drop a comment in the chat. So, I need some advice on what career post MBA to switch to. VC from PMC CEO office, role pre MBA. So I'm assuming this question is, this person is a PM, product manager or project manager, working directly with the CEO's office before MBA, and they want to know where you want to switch. I think it really depends on which sector you have been into and what you're looking to do. You can go into consulting, you can go into investment banking, but this is not at least this is not how we operate here at SIA. We don't believe in I'm going to go down the roster and look at this list of jobs and I'm going to pick this one and here it is, right? That's the job you should apply to with. That is not how we approach things. We're looking at your past experiences. We're looking at where you're looking to go genuinely. Now, sometimes where you're looking to go genuinely doesn't make sense for business school. And we have to look at what is something that still gets you to where you want to go without pitching VC, for example, because not everyone can get into that VC role. So I would say at this point, reflect on what do you want long-term, because what do you want long-term should be then reverse engineered into the short-term plan, right? And look at what kind of opportunities you're looking to have, what kind of sector you're looking to have, and then reverse that from there. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you more details than that, just because I don't know your full story. But if you're going to look at, building your goals, start with a reflection of what do you want, right? And that's where you are much more authentic in terms of how you present your candidacy, even your values as a, ambitious candidate when you're applying to top 20 business schools. Next question. If I've had fast promotions but no formal leadership title, how can I best present that? You literally say that you've been promoted X amount of times in your applications, whether that's in your resume and as well as in the portal. They will ask you what's your starting job, what's your ending job in your role. At the bare minimum, they will have an opportunity for most of the schools, not all, but most of the schools have an opportunity or have a space in there where you can talk a little bit more about your career itself within that organization. So communicate it there. And of course, your formal leadership title is not necessary to succeed in business school. It's how you present your experiences that makes a much more impactful difference. All right. And guys, if you have questions, the ones that are watching live, write them in comments. Write them in the chat. And we won't read them just for your own, peace of mind. We won't place the question on the screen just because this is going to be replayed on YouTube, and we don't want your name to show up. So I'll just read it from the comment when you type it up. Will frequent job hopping be seen as a red flag, even if each move was strategic? Yes, it will be, and you will need to explain it. Definitely well, think of it this way. The admission team is evaluating you, not just what you're going to bring to the table in the classroom. Of course, that's important. But at the end of the day, you are also choosing business schools based on their employment report. So have they been able to help students get the jobs that they wanted? In that report, it doesn't say, oh, this person, had in 5 years had 6 different jobs. They're not going to show that, right? So they're looking at a candidate when they're accepting them into the program and saying, okay, is this candidate going to be able to find the job? And are the red flags explainable enough, right? So if you frequently job hopped, you must explain it. and obviously that explanation needs to make sense. Make sure that you are not justifying, but you're definitely making your explanations very clear as to why you left an opportunity to join another one. So again, as I said earlier, make sure that you are the director of your story, and don't let them fill in the blanks in the way they feel they want to fill in the blanks. All right, next question. So I've stayed at the same company for over 6 years. Could that be seen as a lack of ambition? Not if you had promotions, not if you've been growing in that 6 years. If that's the case, so if you haven't grown, if you've had like maybe 1 or 2 promotions in 6 years, and there's not a huge difference in role itself, then yeah, that's definitely going to be seen as a lack of ambition. Now, that doesn't mean that only promotions are an indication of growth. This is where your story plays a huge role, and the way you're telling your story plays a huge role. But I would definitely look at the experiences that you had over that 6-year period, and how you're presenting it to the business school. Again, story framing, it's everything. All right, I see a few questions in the chat. So I have 15 years experience in power sector and background in civil engineering from India. How can I make my profile strong in MBA applications? I want to do a 2-year full-time MBA from USA. 15 years is definitely going to be a challenge, given that you are, you have 10 years of work, 10 years experience more than the average class. So most of the schools are going to be looking at placing you in the executive MBA program. Now, I recognize that you don't want to do an executive MBA, especially as an international. It does not make a lot of sense, given that you have to travel to take those classes. So that makes a huge sense. So I would be looking at schools that are much more accepting of older candidates, and obviously showcase, have a balance in terms of your presentation. So if you demonstrate too much growth, too much at an executive level, then they're going to say, well, you are too experienced for this full-time MBA program. So you're going to have to find a balance in terms of how you're presenting your experiences, and show, why do you need an MBA? Why do you need an MBA from the US? Why is now the right time for you to do it? So it's the entire narrative that you're presenting. So I have another question. It says, why are average wages in Europe significantly lower than the US, especially post-MBA? Is it mostly due to tax difference or something else? Well, it's also the cost of living. It's different in Europe than it is in the United States. People generally make less wages in Europe than they do in the United States. So that is one of the differences in terms of the salary. Also, the cost of a European MBA is slightly lower, as also a 1-year program versus a 2-year program. So there's a lot of factors that play into that. Hopefully that answers the question. Excellent. And that's mostly on the job market itself, right? Those numbers are reflected. All right, so I think we are out of time. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions, for being here. I invite you to book a consultation if you are looking to get support in this process. There is a QR code at the top of the screen. You can go to our website, ciaadmissions.com, and book a consultation. Next week, we're going to talk about the MBA application process, and how to strengthen your candidacy. That's where we're essentially, we'll be talking more about your applications, given that that's what you should be doing now. However, and after that, as decisions come out, as formal essay questions come out, we'll be shifting to school-specific discussions later down the line. So Definitely subscribe to our channel if you haven't, to be notified about our future events. Follow us on the different social platforms that we are active in. So LinkedIn, Instagram, and obviously YouTube. Follow us on those channels. And I will see you next week. We also will be having a very special event coming up on the 14th of May that we'll be sharing more intel once we just finalize the details on that. So keep an eye out for all new activities that we'll be doing online in the coming months themselves. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.